My name's Lydia Lakemore. I run a blog called Your Organic PT and I grow a lot of food. I thought we'd go through some of the process of how to start either a kitchen garden, a herb garden or an indoor garden, I guess. I have a lot of indoor plants and I have certain foods, vegetables and herbs that I grow indoors. So I thought I'd basically just go through a bit of how I get all of those started. I've got Jackson here, who is my pet bearded dragon, who's currently trying to eat all of my tomato plants, so I'm going to try and keep him away, from that side of the table. What I have here is, whenever I do any of my indoor planting, I do it all on a tray. It just keeps the mess to an absolute minimum. You know what, let's just put you there, because you're going to just race around otherwise. The tray helps to keep the mess, to an absolute minimum. I also have a little pot of indoor compost. I actually keep in an old bird feeding box, but it's really, really useful. I make my own compost outside, but I don't want to bring all of that mess in, so I tend to just buy a small bag of compost from somewhere, just seeding compost. And once it's open, if I empty it into one of these, then it just helps to keep it fresh. It keeps anything from getting in it. I tend to have a saying as keep the muck outside, try and keep everything as not mucky as possible inside. Otherwise, you can end up having a garden inside and outside. But indoor planting. I've got a couple of just old plant pots here that we used for something else. I also have some really nice terracotta. Honestly, it doesn't matter which one you use. These come with plants when you buy them, keep them. And you don't have to go out and buy new ones. Terracotta, there are some gardeners that will only ever use these. If I'm honest, they've clearly got all the money in the world to buy terracotta pots. I do not. So they're a choice. However, they can be very useful for things that take a very, very long time to grow. However, we're not going to go into that sort of complexity today. So we'll stick to some bog standard plastic plant pots. We're going to fill them with compost. I came as ready as possible. Hang on. I've got to now do this neatly because I've said that I've got to keep inside neat. But what will happen is, if you ever do see my gardening, I wouldn't say I'm the neatest gardener in the world. I try, but if you're not naturally that way inclined, you can only do your best. So, how many seeds have we got? Let me have a look. So I'm going to do today, I went for some just really bog standard seeds to get you going. There are some rules with what seeds to buy and what not to buy, but honestly, if you're just starting out, just buy any. As long as they're non-GMO, I wouldn't start messing about with all of that. They're cheap seeds, normal seeds are cheap enough. Just go for a nice, easy grow variety. I went for a tomato, because who doesn't like growing tomatoes? I went for the Moneymaker variety, that is in Wilko. Only because they can be planted this month, so it's quite a nice one. They get quite a nice long harvest. You can also grow these indoor or outdoor, so dependent on space, you can keep these in the pot and grow them outdoor if you really, really want to. So if you don't have a garden, they're still a really good variety to go for, which is why I chose these. If you're really into your gardening, I really like the cherry tomato by Real Seeds, Chadwick Cherry. I would highly recommend those. But like I said, if you're just getting started and you just want to grow a few little pots inside, these are good enough. So we'll start there. It's more important to get everyone into gardening. We can go through the technical things later. Great. So I'm just going to pre-water a little bit. I don't really want it, hence the tray, in case it goes through. So I'm just going to let my soil, compost I should say, sort of a half and half. Anyway, when you see all these different composts marked up, it can look really confusing to begin with, but basically I would recommend a low or a no peat compost if possible. And also I would recommend going for a seedling compost if it's specified. These are seedlings, well, they are really, technically. All it means is the compost is a little bit finer. They might add a little bit of sand and things to it just to make it fine, so that the tiny little roots don't have to struggle through the thicker compost, that's all. So I've tipped out a few seeds. You get a lot, so if it goes wrong, start again and try another. There are a few ways that you can do this. If you have any fancy kit, look at me calling a propagator a fancy kit, but if you have anything like this, you can just sow these directly into some compost that is already in there. However, if you want to make it really easy, you can actually just put a seed. If you want to make sure that they all grow, put a couple in there, and if a couple come up, just take them out so that only one is left in there, and then it just allow it to grow in the pot. This is the easiest and simplest way to do it. And before I fully understood everything and got into growing plants to quite a complex level, I just started like this, and you can watch experienced gardeners and think, that's so confusing, I don't understand how and why you're doing that. But it sometimes looks more complex than it is, I suppose that's what I'm trying to say, and it isn't. Gardening is literally just putting seeds into some compost or buying a plant and caring for it. That's it. If you can keep a plant alive, and admittedly it takes practice, then you're gardening. And hopefully it brings you some joy, because they tend to. And it brings a little bit of nature indoors for you as well. That's it. So what I will do is, I've actually got an extra one of these upstairs. I can then put that directly into a propagator, or if you do not have a propagator, simply get a plastic, clear plastic bag, a sandwich bag, or if you've got a clear plastic box, anything, it will do. But you just want to seal that now into something that will just keep it warm and propagated. So that's our tomato, and that's it. Oh, the only thing that I should say, I feel so smug this year, I've managed to label all of my plants for once. So we'll label it Tomato Tom, and we'll label it Money Maker. Put that in there, and wait for signs of life. That's it. If you really, 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 really want, you can just leave that on a windowsill and it will still grow. You don't have to put it into something plastic or a propagator or something glass. If you have a really nice propagator, some of them are made out of glass, but it will still grow on a warm, bright windowsill. I can't emphasise that enough. If you've got a very, very bright windowsill, that's the one to put these on. Fab. The other one that I've gone for is a herb, because I really like growing herbs and herbs. So I'm just checking that my lizard is not wandering away. Okay, so Jackson's fine, but we have had to move rooms. Where are you going, mister? Stay there. There you go. So I just wanted to show you quickly, that's our tomato that we planted downstairs, and we're going to put it into, this is what I was saying, so if you don't have one of these, don't worry, you can just do this on a very warm, bright windowsill. But if you do see anything like this, they are for when you've planted your seeds. These are called propagators. What I wanted to do up here was just show you the dill. But I'm going to give you two options. So, if planting herbs, that's when I always put them in terracotta. Partly because I really like herbs, are my favourite thing now to grow. So I do give them the extra care that they need, if possible. There we go. But the reason that I wanted to show you two different types was because herbs generally are very, very small. So when you grow herb seeds, you don't tend to put like one plant in. For example, dill. There are 600 seeds in here. That's a lot of seeds. So unlike tomato plants, where every single plant will give you some fruits and give you plenty, with dill I sprinkle, or with all herbs, and then you can just leave them. You can hear Jackson running around on the floor. Hello. Great. So I've just sprinkled them. You see that? Quite evenly. There might be a few too many, but you can always thin it out. It's always better, or I find it, especially with seeds, because you do get them all at once. It's better to have too many, plant too many, than not plant enough. Spring only comes round once a year, and the vast majority of plants that I grow have to be planted in spring. So there we go. So I've just covered it over lightly with a little bit more compost. Just pressed it down, not squeezed it down, but just pressed it down. Great, so now we want to give it a bit of watering. So not over-watered, but not so it's pouring out of the bottom, but so that it just damps all the compost. There we go, no drips. And I'm going to put that into my indoor propagator, which is nice and tall and fits pots in. So I'll show you. Oh, there we go. Great. So there we go. We've got, oops, not being clumsy at all. There we go. So we have got one lot of dill planted up. We have got one tomato, and I also put in some flowers in there as well. So they will all fit in one propagator. And there you go. Thank you for watching. I really hope you have enjoyed that tutorial from Jackson and I hope that it's given you some hints and tips of how you might start your own indoor garden. And happy planting. Say bye, boy.